In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering us here, Lord. We thank you for bringing each and every one of us through the rain and the storm, Lord. We thank you, God, that you prepared your word for us, Lord, to give us life. And we ask you, oh God, as we talk tonight about relationships, Lord, as we talk about marriage in particular, Lord, and preparation for it, God, we just ask you to open our hearts and open our minds, oh Lord, and help us to maintain a balance between our hearts and our minds, Lord, as we approach this topic, Lord. And we just ask, God, that we would approach it humbly, and also, Lord, that we would approach it with a desire to learn what is pleasing to you, God, because we know that the family, Lord, is the central institution of the kingdom of heaven, Lord. We ask you, God, to bless each of us, and those who are traveling, God, please bring them safely. In your holy name, with the intercession of Saint Mary, the prayers of all the saints, please, O Lord, hear us as we cry out together, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory. Okay. If you do not have I'm going to pass these around. If you don't have a writing utensil, please take one. You're going to have an exam. No, I'm just kidding. These are like recycled, and I'm not even joking, from like when I was in high school, so many of them may not work. But if they don't, just stick them back on the table. Need more? Okay. Good. I'm going to pass out one more thing. And while I'm doing so, I just want to welcome everyone. I want to welcome two groups in particular, and that is the YWAM group, that's Youth with a Mission, and they're right here. So,
what's up? Hi.
They're over here and here, and here. Do you guys want to just say your names really quick?
Sure. I'm Michael, or Mumble. I'm Digger. Digger. Digger.
With a D.
I'm Mark.
I'm Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Dorothy. And I'm Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Okay, thank you. And then I'd also like to welcome our sister church, the Indian Orthodox Church in, what side, New York? What's the name of the church? St. Mary and St. Anthony. Can we just take a minute? Oh, that's our church. Okay, what's your church? Sorry. What's the name of your church? I'm sorry? St. Mary of Jackson, in Jackson Heights? Okay, you're not even Indian, are you? Yeah. Okay, can we just say our names, please?
My name's Tim.
Tim.
Hi, Tim.
My name is Javis.
Hi, Travis.
My name is Shani.
Hi, Shani. Jerry. Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jinsi.
Hi, Jinsi.
Hi, I'm Farouk.
Hi, Tarun.
What's up, guys? My name's Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tina.
Hi,
Hi,
Nina.
Nina.
And I'm Alina.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Alina.
Alina.
Okay. Oh, there's more of you.
I'm Brian.
Hi,
Hi,
Brian.
Brian.
My name is Bobby.
Hi, Bobby.
My name's Anish.
Hi, Anish.
You're like a mix of like kind of Indian and then like I'm so, not so Indian. Welcome to all of you. Your goal, because I'm not going to have everyone else introduce themselves, is going to be at the end of the meeting to find out anyone else in the room who's not YWAM or Indian Orthodox.
I'm Victor Wasa.
Yes. We don't know where Victor came from. He just kind of landed here. We accepted him with open arms because we love him. We're going to get started because we have a lot of things that we want to share in tonight. I think my plan is going to be that I will share with you. I hope you'll be actively listening and filling in the blanks. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have, if Dr. Samir says it's okay, a few minutes for discussion. We'll see how the time is. So last week, for those who were here or got the notes, there were the first part of this 4-part series on things I wish I'd known before we got married started. And the 3 points from last week were, that being in love is not an adequate foundation for building a successful marriage. Second thing was that romantic love has two stages. The first is the euphoric stage, and the second stage is the one that takes a lot of work, the maintenance stage. The first one doesn't last as long. And the third point was that toilets are not self-cleaning. So if you want the notes, check them out on the website, newly revised. Today we're going to talk about 3 other points. And I'll be reading Dr. Samir's body language to see if I'm off or not off.
I didn't read the book.
Okay. I brought the book that the talks are based on if anyone wants to see it when we're done. It's a book by Gary Chapman, who also wrote the 5 love languages. So just to start, the first one you see here is I wish I had known that the saying like mother like daughter and like father like son was not a myth, which means there's actually some truth in it. So obviously I'm going to share some personal things with you tonight, and of course you're not going to tell anyone, except everyone out there. Let me give you an example of something that happened with me and Abuna. So I'll say, do you want to eat something? And he'll say, no, I'm okay. His answers are usually pretty brief and to the point. And I'll say, there's some chicken and macaroni bechamel in the fridge. No, I'm okay. I could split a piece of the macaroni with you. I didn't eat either, so I'm okay. So what I just did is exactly what my mother did, which I never thought I would do. I always ask the same question like 3 times. I'll usually ask it a different way, but I still ask the question like 3 times. And it's a simple example, and we might not talk about earth-shattering things, but these are things that we pick up whether we realize it or not. And I'm sure each of you could probably think of other examples. The first thing we have here on our sheet is that we are all products of our environment and are greatly influenced positively and negatively by our parents, especially in the area of, what do you guys think? Huh? Starts with a C. Yes, Andrew. Communication, especially in the area of communication. Whether we realize it or not, we pick up on certain, and it's actually verbal and nonverbal nuances. So if your father, communicated by, putting his foot over his lap and sitting back to show that he's tired and expects a cup of water, that's still a form of communication. He's sending a signal. And sometimes without even realizing, we're picking up that culture. We're picking up those values, those expectations. No. Oh, yeah, here's one. Last one. Okay. So we pick up things we like and dislike. The other day, I kind of lost it, and I blew it with my daughter, Grace, and I was like at my edge, and I slammed the door, and I don't do this every day, but I did do this. And I said to her when I came out, I said, no more screaming. And what did I do? I screamed. And as I'm doing it, I'm thinking to myself, I'm standing like this far away from her and telling her not to scream, and I'm screaming. What am I teaching her? It's okay to scream. And I'm saying one thing, but I'm doing another, and I recognize that. But the truth is, she's going to grow up over time, and she's going to remember the day I slammed the door, the day I screamed, whatever it might be, right? So even if parents are saying one thing, we pick up on their behaviors, whether we like it or not. And the reason this is important is because you'll see here, let's fill in the next one. It says, if my parent or parents has a I was going to give it away. This one I'm going to give you, because some of these are going to be harder to fill in, but destructive lifestyle, I need to acknowledge, read books, talk with counselors, and discuss what I'm learning. So for some people, if your dad walks in the door after, a long day at work or running errands, your mom might come and sort of, take his jacket coat and hang it up for him, right? So there's some of us in this room right now who are thinking, my mother would never do that. And some of you are thinking, yeah, I could see my mom doing that. Some of you might be thinking that once in a while your father will cook breakfast. If he's off on a certain day, he'll cook breakfast for the family and everyone comes to the table. Some of you are like, I've never seen my father even touch a utensil. And you think that these are just attributes of your father or attributes of your mother. But what you don't realize is they become part of your way of thinking, your expectation setting for yourself and even for your own life thereafter. Uh, Here's another example. If you're, this one I have to say, me and my mom are totally, totally different. But for people who, like some women like to spend money very liberally. If I like it, I gotta have it, right? And there's other women who will be more cautious in how they spend, right? These are also things that we are gonna pick up one way or the other. Let's say your dad likes to have, some people this is the case, they have a beer with dinner once in a while. It's just part of the culture of your house. It's part of that lifestyle. It's gonna be more familiar to you and maybe to the lifestyle you decide to have. Let's say your mom is the one that kind of usually is the one interrupting your dad, and whenever he tells a story, she'll stop him and make sure to like correct the details, because no, you didn't get it. It wasn't Tuesday, it was Wednesday. No, she wasn't wearing blue, she was wearing green, right? Well, again, it's part of mom and dad qualities, but it's still part of what I'm getting more familiar with in my own way of handling. Um, Another important thing, since we said communication is important, for some people with conflict, they will completely withdraw. If things get too heated, they just shut down and they withdraw, right? Whenever things get bad, dad just leaves the house. That's what he does. He just leaves the house. He might go to the backyard, he might take the car, but he leaves the house. When things get heated, we know what mom's gonna do. She's gonna scream. And you're gonna hear her voice, no matter which bathroom upstairs you lock yourself in, you're still gonna hear her scream. These are all just parts of what we, almost by osmosis, become part of how we think and what we feel. And I'm not saying you're going to be exactly like your mom or exactly like your dad, but what I'm saying is if we don't reflect on these attitudes and these values and these habits, and we don't think about what part of them we want and what part of them we don't want, then just naturally a lot of them will become part of who we will be as well, especially when we enter a relationship like marriage, because then you're really being pushed against a lot of different challenges in such a relationship, and stresses as well. Although it's beautiful, there are a lot of stresses and a lot of challenges. So true colors do come out. So let's look at the next thing. If my parent or parents, sorry, we did that one. The best time to change communication patterns is during, what do you think?
Dating?
Close, yeah. Singleness, another word for dating? Courtship, exactly. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to let you write that, and I'm going to tell you why. It's always better to take preventative steps and discuss issues before they become problems. Okay? It's always better. So I'm going to tell you something that Boone and I did that I think is amazing. It's really simple, and it's really not a big deal, but it really makes a difference. Take advantage of the courtship. Take advantage of that time. Everyone knows what courtship is, when you're getting to know someone for the purpose of marriage, okay? So you have like neutral, you could take neutral ground, such as a book. I have a few books I can recommend. And you can really have fun with this. You can just ask each other questions, hypothetical questions. And at this point, assuming it's not or hasn't become an issue yet, it won't make it look like you don't like the way he spends money, or you don't like the way she dresses, or you don't know what she's going to think about, having 12 children or whatever it is, because it's so safe. It's so safe. And if you feel like asking certain questions or having certain dialogue during courtship is not safe, then you may not be in the right relationship. Because that needs to be, if that relationship is guarded by prayer, and if that relationship is guarded with the intention of a marriage that is pleasing to God, then there should be a sense of safety for you to talk about things. So, Abun and I, there's a book by Higomen Gowergios. He's a subdeacon in a church, I think, in California. Oh, he's a priest. He's a senior priest. That's right. That's the title for senior priest. Anyway, and it's really cool because the book it's like a thin pamphlet, and there's a page on every topic under the sun you would ever want to know or talk to someone about, whether it's money or communication or parents or sex or children or anything at all. And so what we would do is we literally just flip the pages and be like, okay, I'm going to choose 2 questions from this page, and you choose 2 questions from the same page, and then we'll go to the next one. And it really established a very safe and neutral space to just say, how would you react if? How would you feel if? And you get to know the person, how they think, how they would react, how they would behave. So for example, if I wanted to ask a question like, how would you feel if I needed to work closely on my job, in my job with a man, and my job required that I have to travel with this man, obviously in separate hotel rooms, but we would have to travel. Maybe my assumption is, it's my job, I need to get paid, and the man has his own job and he needs to get paid, but I would never know that 5 years later in marriage, that might be an issue that causes a severe clash, right? Again, there's no way you're going to think of every question, but with the wisdom of God and the guidance of the Holy Spirit within the context of a sacred period of courtship, you're gonna be prayerfully seeking the true, sincere heart of that person, who's hopefully not just trying to give you the answer you want to hear that's going to please you, but enough questions are going to reveal, that type of thinking, the way the person is thinking, their expectations, and so forth. Another question, you can have fun with it, and really, we just had fun. What would you do if, I decided I wanted to work right after I had children? Well, the assumption is, whatever you want to do. I would think, whatever you want to do. If you want to work, you work. Some men might think absolutely not. Once we have children, you're home for 5 years until they go to school. And again, it's not like one set of expectations is better than the other, but it's just better to have dialogue. And just one thing to clarify, you're not asking these questions to figure out what's the right answer and what's going to work, because you'll never know what's going to work until you get to that point. Things, life changes, things evolve. But at least you're opening the door to this dialogue, and you're doing it again in a prayerful and an honest way. So let's go to the next one here. It says, if you are interested in getting to know someone for the purpose of marriage, but are uncomfortable with his or her parents' character traits, you can either blank these traits or you can blank change. Would anyone?
Ignore.
Oh no. That is not an option. No. Yeah, what do you think?
Acknowledge and change?
Uh,
Acknowledge these traits or change the person?
Acknowledging is go one step past. I don't have it. I'm sorry.
Accept.
Not tolerate, accept. You can either accept the traits or you can negotiate change. Negotiate the change. So I'll let you write those down and talk about a couple of examples.
Is there not an option of leaving?
Leaving what?
The relationship. Leaving the relationship.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, if you're, if this is the only thing
It's
you're
repeated,
invested
maybe.
in, maybe they live in another country, so it's,
They're not going to.
But, so for example, here's a good one I find a lot, is if, for example, the parents are, I learned this word when I was working, Christers. Did you guys ever hear that word? Christers? I worked with a guy, and he used to call himself a Christer. It's actually a person who goes to church on Christmas and Easter only. I think it's so, and we know there are lots of people that we know personally. Anyway, if the family tends to be more of a Christer type family, where they go to church on Christmas and Easter, and maybe, on occasion if needed, and that's something that you're not comfortable with, that those are going to be the grandparents potentially of your children, you might want to either accept that and say, you know what, that's his parents. I'm speaking as a woman, that's his parents. Or you might say, we need to negotiate something. I need to know that your parents are going to be actively involved in coming to church more regularly, especially if they're going to be a model for our kids, and then that has to be a decision that has to be made. Again, there's not a right or wrong. Some people are very comfortable accepting the distance and that space, and that there are going to be things they don't approve of or feel comfortable with that person's parents. But someone else might say that's a non-negotiable. Someone might say if your father smokes and your brother, and I'm going to put this out there, and I know this is, I wasn't thinking of this when I prepared it, it's pushing a boundary. I actually know a personal story where someone had a sibling who was struggling with homosexuality. And it was sort of not obvious, but obvious, if you know what I mean. So that was a real struggle for that person to decide, okay, that's not the person who's courting me, that's not the person I'm going to live with, but that's potentially a part of the family with which I'm going to, again, grow old, raise my children, visit the house, etc. These are real issues, guys. These are real issues that have to be considered. So you have to think about, and prayerfully, what are the things I'm willing to accept? What are the things I'm willing to negotiate? And then going to what you were saying earlier, what are the absolute non-negotiables? Does this family approve of, going out and drinking in a drunken fashion on a regular basis? Does this family, whatever it might be for you? So those are things that need to be considered. Okay, my last thing before we move on to the second sort of big highlight is love is blind. Love is blind. That's why it says in the book of Proverbs, I believe, or Psalms, for the women and for the men, guard your heart. Because when you're in love, you're blind. Like one of the things this guy was saying in the book is it's so hard to see the truth for what it is when you're in love. Because you can't imagine associating anything that is not amazing with that person. And so you make excuses or you build sort of buffers around anything that could be bad. You just kind of like don't think about it or make excuses for it. But the truth is, if we ignore the warning signs because we're in love, we can and will pay the price later. Okay? I know a young woman who is a very dear friend of mine in Egypt, and she, I think within the first week of marriage, if I'm not mistaken, she was already in an abusive relationship. However, to be quite fair and honest, as much as I love this young person, the warning signs were there. They were there. The person had been engaged twice before and was too embarrassed, and for those of you who are familiar with Egyptian culture, was too embarrassed to break up another engagement. Things were planned, money was invested, families were already, planning for the future of their kids, and they're not together right now. So thank God there are no children involved, but we have to really. That's why when I prayed earlier, we have to have our hearts and our minds both working together and alert, not just our heart, but also our mind. All right, let's move on. Second point. I wish I had known how to solve disagreements without arguing. Conflicts are not a sign that you have married the blank person, the wrong person. That's not true. If you're going to tell me that every relationship that has
Mora,
a
can I say
conflict,
something about
yeah.
the previous point?
Yeah, please.
Regarding the idea of love is blind, I think that's why it's very important to share this relationship with someone who is out of the relationship, so he can see what me in the relationship cannot see. And that's an abuna or an elder or a priest or a close friend, someone who is from outside the relationship who can see things that me being in the relationship cannot see.
Yeah, that's an important point.
Neutral.
A neutral
Yes.
party, right. Yeah, because once we isolate ourselves, it can become...
And that's what's happened because we tend to, I don't want anyone to know that I'm seeing this person or I'm interested in this person. So we tend to isolate ourselves and start seeing ourselves outside of the bigger community. And that's what problem happens. This isolation, and I know better and I know everything. I think it's very important to get at least the opinion of one person that you can really trust uh, in the relationship.
Right, you don't have to tell the world,
Yeah, exactly.
but there has to be someone in that circle. Yeah. So the next thing is that conflicts are not a sign that you have married the wrong person. If you're a human being, there's going to be conflict at some point, at some level, just by the natural, way that God created us. We're individuals. It would be boring and it would be outside of God's nature if we were all exactly the same, thought exactly the same, agreed and disagreed on the same things. It's not the case. So the reason this point is important is because a lot of people, once they enter a relationship or especially a marriage, and they're like, man, I got into it with the wrong person. I'm stuck. You ever hear anyone think, or people maybe don't say it out loud, but they feel like, oh man, I'm stuck. I'm stuck with the wrong person, as if like, man, I just chose the wrong thing on the menu and now I'm stuck with it, as if like it's over, like I can't move past it. I gotta either eat it or just starve, you know. And it's not the case. That's not how marriage. That's not how any relationship should work. It says that conflicts have the potential of teaching us how to love, support, and encourage each other. The difference is in how you blank the conflict. Huh? Handle or process. Process. Process is the word for that one. You know, in the Chinese language, no, it's Chinese. I'm probably not saying this 100% correctly, but I'm going to do my best, okay? In the Chinese language, the characters that they use to write out the word conflict, one of those characters, I believe, actually means opportunity. So the word conflict, it's written with two characters, and one of them means opportunity, because you can look at conflict as an endpoint, like we said. خلاص اعمل ايه؟ زي ما انتم شايفين. هي دي اللي ربنا اختارها. Oh yeah, that's a little Arabic confusion. Okay. Yeah. See? You know, like this is the one God chose for me. See what I'm stuck with? That kind of idea. Or we see it as an opportunity, like it says, to love, to grow, to challenge, to encourage. So question is, how do we deal or process conflict? I'm going to give you an example. And Amuna's here. I shared this with him beforehand, so it's okay.
That's the difference. You're polite enough to do so. I just share.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so this just happened actually, like literally the other day. We folded the bed sheets. I do not like folding bed sheets. Does anyone here not like folding bed sheets? Especially the ones with like the round, I don't like them. But my loving husband was available just at the right moment as they came fresh out of the dryer. So he helped me to fold them, and then I took them upstairs, and then I put them on the dresser in our bedroom, and they sat there for 2 days. Why? Because the only available space where they can go is far enough up that even with the step stool, you know what I'm talking about. That even with the step stool, like I can't really get them up there, and then it's like, what's the point of folding them? Because I end up like throwing them up there, and then they get all messed up anyway. And so they sat there for 2 days, and in my mind, I'm thinking, well, Abuna knows where the bed sheets go, and he knows they need to be put away, so he's going to put them away.
Did you ask?
No, I didn't. I didn't. And honestly, I was a little bit ticked.
If you ask, you would love to do it.
Come on.
Okay, let's move on to my point.
I would love to do it.
There are 2 points here. Number one, and this I am still trying to learn this point myself, that people, not just men, but people are not mind readers. That's not on here, but that's really important. I really expected that he was going to take care of it.
Okay.
Just like so many other
Do
things.
things, especially at home chores.
Well, I don't, I don't,
then you say thank you.
I don't operate.
Trust me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I was thinking. Like it's obvious. But in all fairness, again, we are brought up with different values. We have a different history, different experiences, different expectations, and really, guys, girls and guys, people don't read minds. So while there may be some exceptions in terms of when someone should be able to tell, like something, I don't know, that you're upset, like you don't have to walk up and say, I'm upset at you. You know, there are some times where it's okay. For the most part, and this is a real struggle for me, to be honest, that I confess, not just with my husband, but in general, people don't read minds. And I know, even with my kids, I have very high expectations. And so I get frustrated because what's going on is, in my mind, the conversation has been happening. I'm already thinking, okay, the sheets are on the dresser, it's too high up, I'm already thinking, I'm already processing, I'm already making plans for him without telling him. So when he doesn't do it, there's a couple of ways I can react. Either I can become resentful. I don't know, how do you say resentful in Arabic? Because I really need to use that word a lot. No. That's a good word. I've been needing to use that with a lot of people. I I don't know how to say it. Anyway, I could become resentful, and I could take it out in other ways. I can just hold it in, and then just at the right time, when it can't hold it in, I can just explode, and he'll be like, what on earth? Like, where's this coming from, right? I can actually feel offended and hurt that he didn't have the sensitivity to care about my needs. Yeah, right?
I helped you fold a lot of things.
I wish I wasn't.
Or I can become defensive and be like, and just begin to think, I'm not at fault. And if he said, well, you didn't ask me, for example, if that was his response, I'd become defensive and say, I shouldn't have to ask you. So we each respond to conflict in different ways. We can either be, again, defensive, offended, hurt, resentful, angry, frustrated. I mean, we can go on and on. And each of us might react differently. Someone else might make excuses and say, what was I thinking? He's got 10,000 other things going on. He probably walked right past those and didn't even notice they were there. So again, I'm not saying one way is right or wrong. I'm just saying we are all different human beings. And we need to understand that different human beings interact with each other, conflict happens. And it's okay, but it's how we process that conflict. So going to the next thing, instead of asking for a time to blank, request a time to blank. It helps create an atmosphere of friendship. Any thoughts on that one?
Is one of them the same?
No. Close.
Talk.
Which one is talk?
The second one. No, the first one.
The first one is talk. Good. And the second one
I
is?
could tell, I was reading your mind.
The second one is? Me and Digger have had a quick connection. The second one is?
Hang out.
Instead of asking for a time to talk, request a time to
Chat.
listen. This is one of the techniques that this Mr. Chapman here recommends. Okay, so especially for the ladies, if you go to your husbands or your fiancés or guys in general, well, I don't want to generalize this, but I'll just talk to myself. Can we talk? Usually when a woman says, can we talk? I'm starting to get that. What are some of the ideas that go through a guy's mind?
What
What did I do?
Am I in trouble?
How long is this going to take? See, we're married. Did you notice he got it right? And I didn't even talk to him. Are you thinking that?
I'm gonna should have a point.
That's a lot of times like, honey, I want to talk to you about something. As soon as that comes up, it's like, what are we going to talk about? How long is it going to take? How long is it going to take to process her feelings and her emotions, and words and her, right? So this guy, I like what he says. He says next time, like, let me give you an actual example here. Okay, here's a good one. And again, this has to do with, and this can relate. I'm making up part of it. Anyway, so for example, let's say we went to visit some friends. You know, we went to a family's house, and I had an experience there that I didn't really enjoy my time. For a lot of reasons, I didn't enjoy my time. He seemed to be perfectly okay. He didn't say anything about it. So instead of saying to him, can I have a time to talk about the trip or about the visit to the Solomon's house, I may come to him instead and say, can I have a time to listen? And it would be like, one of the cool things, really, really cool and really effective things in relationships is when you develop like understood like nuances with each other. Do you know what I mean? So like code words even, like you say certain things and you don't have to go through an explanation. It's part of your system. It's part of your understanding. So what he's saying is if you have a culture of, hey, can I have some listening time? Then what he's saying, I would go to Abuna and I would say, for example, can I have some instead of saying, can I talk, can I listen? And he'd say, okay, what's the topic? And I would say, I want to listen, I want you to talk to me, or I want to listen to you talk to me about what you thought of last night when we went to the Solomon's house. Now, he has no idea maybe what bothered me, but I give him a chance to talk, and I listen. And what Chapman is suggesting, which is true, it's going to create more of an atmosphere that's friendly and at ease, and not at, tense, right? So he's gonna talk and he's gonna be like, yeah, it was fun. You know, he might, and this might really be difficult because he might blow it off like, yeah, it was fine. And I might have to say, what did you think about when we were eating that around the table there? Or I might need to like probe a little bit, but I want to listen to him. And the key thing here is to make it about one topic, because what really happened is I didn't like the sarcasm that the husband had at the dinner table. I didn't like the fact that I barely talked to my husband because he was off, like, I don't know, playing some or football Wii or whatever they do, right? I didn't like the fact that I had to sit with the kids the whole time all by myself and feed them, and then when one of them started to scream, he didn't come to, you know, whatever, da 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 da. And he said it was fine. So I might need
Never
to.
happened, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not we, actually.
It rarely happens, I should say.
But the thing is, if he can share with me first, it creates a climate of, okay, now I can have some talking time, but now I can have the talking time and fit it in the context of where he's coming from. Because I can't assume, again, that he knows what's in my mind or what's been bothering me. So I like this tactic a lot. Can I have some listening time? And you give a topic and you begin to listen. And guys and girls too, especially when you're the person who someone's coming to as a girl. Maybe the guy comes to you and maybe he didn't like what you were wearing when he took you out to visit his parents, but he doesn't know he doesn't want to just come to you and say, like, I really didn't like what you were wearing when you're bending over. I thought it was totally inappropriate. So what he might say is, can we have some listening time? And then he might ask you, what did you think of the time at my parents? How did you feel you presented yourself? And then listen. The point then is to stop and listen. And maybe the girl will say, you know, again, maybe the girl will be oblivious, maybe the girl will have certain insight, but it provides a groundwork and an atmosphere for a friendly type of conversation to take place. And that's the big thing with conflict. When the tension is there and the person who's ready to fire out is the one that starts the talking, it doesn't always go well. So if the other person can sort of bring out their part first, it makes it a lot easier to try to have a reasonably calm conversation. The other thing is, like in this situation I just described, if for example I did go to Abuna about this and he came back and said, I thought it was fine. And I said, well, what did you think of X, Y? And, you know, we didn't really get anywhere. I need to also acknowledge he may not see it my way. You know, sometimes we enter conflict and we want to convince the person that I'm right, you were insensitive, you ignored me, you didn't defend me when he made that comment, da 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 da. And the point of getting through a conflict is not to figure out who's right and wrong, but to have a sense of understanding. And that's the next one here. The first step in listening is to understand and affirm each other's ideas. And so to understand someone, you have to ask some questions. You have to show interest. So, for example, you can ask something like clarifying questions. So, are you saying that that comment really hurt your feelings? You're clarifying, okay? You can rephrase something in a similar fashion, or you can reflect it. It seems like you're really upset about this. Okay, you're taking it in and you're really showing that you're hearing it. I'm going to make a generalization, and that's exactly what it is. It's a generalization, okay? In general, women need to feel understood a little bit more than men, okay? Men and women both need to be understood, but it's particularly important for women to feel understood. So when I come and share something, I don't mind if you ask me 1,000 questions. That's going to make me feel like you really understand me. And for me as a woman, that's really important, okay? For a man, it's important that a man feels understood, but it's a little bit even more important that he feels affirmed or validated. Why? Because validation is tied into what for a man? Huh? Not pride, but respect, right? So for a man, it's still important to clarify. Are you saying that you know, You were really offended by that? Are you saying that really upset you? You're clarifying, you're trying to understand. The guy is going to be okay if you ask 3 questions as opposed to like 10. Okay, the girl's not going to mind if you ask 10. But the guy wants to hear something like, I see your point. Or I see your point. Just validate it. If the guy says, I'm sorry, I really didn't think it was a big deal. I might not agree again, okay? I might still be hurt and I don't agree. I could still disagree, but at the same time, I can validate his experience, his feelings, okay? If his experience was, I had a good time, I'm sorry, I really didn't think that was a big deal, I don't have to agree, but I can at least validate and say, okay, I see where you're coming from, I don't agree, but I understand where you're coming from. Or if you want to go as far as use the R word, you can say, I respect your opinion. Because that's what a guy really needs to hear.
The R word.
The R word. Yeah. You like that? So again, that's a big generalization. Men and women, we all need to feel understood. We all need to feel validated and affirmed. But it's particularly important for the woman to feel understood and for the man to feel validated for whatever his opinions are or his feelings. Okay, the next one. Blank in a marriage is not only positive, but it is necessary. There's like 1,000 words, so I'm going to give it to you guys. Huh? Yeah, that's mine.
I guess I'm just good at relationships.
I know. Compromise. Compromise. Compromise in a marriage is not only positive, but it is necessary. A couple of examples. Sorry, we're going to email the notes for those of you who didn't get it. Okay, I'm going to give you again some personal examples. Those are always, I think, the best. Abuna, and he's a very unique Abuna in so many ways. How can I begin to share? He, everyone thinks like an Abuna is like, lives in a cave and sleeps in his like robe and like puts the imam on in his shower. It's very interesting. I don't know if it's like that, but like they think they're like untouchable or whatever. They're men of God, but they have desires. All men have desires, and all women do. So Buna likes me to have my nails done. Okay, this is my manicure after 2 days. I actually want to walk around. I want you to see this. This is my manicure after 2 days. I don't like manicures. I don't like them. I find them to be a waste of money and a waste of time. Pedicures, on the other hand, are okay because they last. Okay, but I find this to be annoying because that's me. But I do it once in a blue moon for my husband's sake. And that's a compromise. That is a compromise. Like, I was just going to get my, feet done, and I was like, for the extra, great deals down here, like $4 or $5. I'm like, all right, fix my nails too. But more so for my husband. But the reason I really don't like them too, honestly, I've never had a manicure last more than 2 days. Never. If you can find, and I'm not doing that ultraviolet thing because that's like not a real manicure. So, now they can like ultraviolet them, and then you have to go. Yeah. So anyway, that is an example of compromise. Okay. Another example is like, am I sharing too many examples? I'm gonna skip that one.
I might do dishes, but I'm gonna do it because my wife wants me to help.
Right.
That's compromise.
That's a
I
compromise.
hate to do dishes, but I have to do it because I want to help.
Yeah, or you do it once in a while. Like, I don't do this every week. I cannot do this every week, okay? But I can do this once in a while. Another example is like, for example, Abuna will be out late at night often. But for me, it's like I can accept comfortably, not resentfully, not bitterly. I can accept that he can be out late on a regular basis, but there's an agreement that if 11 o'clock hits and he's not home, I'm going to get a text, I'm going to get a phone call. I'm going to get some idea of, do I wait up so that we can, see each other and pray together? Or are you going to call me? Are we going to pray on the phone? Am I just going to see you in the morning? There's an agreement. So it's not a perfect solution. He might still come home at midnight or whatever the case, but there's a level of expectation there. And that expectation happens through dialogue. It happens through communication. Okay? So compromise is positive and it's very much necessary. So we're moving close to our last thing. 3 positive ways to resolve a conflict are: 1, meet in the middle. 2, meet on your side. Or 3, meeting later at another time. I'll let you write those in. So it's meeting in the middle is the first one. I like the example he gives in the book, so I'm going to use his example for this. He talks about a couple where, make sure I get this right, the wife, they're trying to figure out where to go for Christmas. By the way, in relationships, especially in the beginning, these are like hot topics. Especially if you have to, appease both sides of the family. Where do you go on major holidays? Who are you going to eat? Whose house are you going to eat at? Who are you going to spend time with? Well, the wife has a father who's dying of cancer and probably won't make it till the next Christmas. But the husband's family, his sister's visiting from California, and she only comes out from the West Coast once every 5 years. So they both have very valid reasons. And if, every single couple can resolve this differently. Well, an example of how they might meet in the middle is they had a vacation scheduled for the Caribbean. And instead of paying all the money for the Caribbean, they decided we're going to nix the Caribbean trip. We're going to use the money so we can book flights, 2 flights, 3 days to your family and 3 days to mine. That might be okay for their marriage, for their relationship. Another family might decide to handle it differently. But that's an example of meeting in the middle. How about meeting on your side? Love makes you do things you don't want to do. So sometimes another way to work through a conflict is to give in. And as an act of sacrifice and an act of love, to go ahead. For example, some things you can't compromise exactly like. For example, I like the example here. There's a woman, she wants to have children. Her husband also wants to have children. That's an important thing to agree or disagree about. But he wants to be financially stable first. He doesn't want to just have kids now. They're still trying to get, set on their feet. She's a bit concerned. She's a little bit older in age, and she's concerned her fertility period is kind of approaching the mid-30s. So, out of his concern for her, because she's, really concerned about this, he agrees, okay, we'll go ahead and try to have kids now. So he basically forfeited his desire, which was to wait for her. So that's meeting on your side or meeting on one of the sides, okay? And the last one is meeting later. Sometimes you can't compromise, you can't meet in the middle, and you're not willing to give up your place. I feel strongly when the bathroom is clean, this is how I want the tub cleaned. I disagree. I think the tub has to be cleaned in this manner. And they just will not agree about it. And I know that sounds silly, but it could be the very thing that they disagree on. And they might just say, when you clean the bathroom, you do it your way. When I clean the bathroom, I'll do it my way. Maybe at a later time we'll revisit the topic and figure out something, and maybe not. Okay? But that's okay. All right, the last thing here. I wish I had known that apologizing is a sign of strength. Real men don't apologize, right? No, that's not true. That's apparently what John Wayne or whoever that famous person said it in the book. The first blank means to admit that what I did or failed to do is wrong. Confession. Confession means to admit that what I did or failed to do is wrong. I'm confessing I did something wrong or didn't do something I should have done. And blank means that I consciously turn from that wrong and seek to do what is right. Repentance. Thank you. Repentance. It means I actually turn from the wrong and decide to do what's right. There are no healthy marriages without apology and forgiveness. I'm going to add to that, and I know it's not the topic. There are no healthy families or children who don't witness apology and forgiveness. When I was sharing with you how I blew up at my daughter the other day, I was angry because I felt that she was what ticked me off. She was what brought out that anger, that frustration. And I actually didn't apologize to her right away after I blew up. Usually if I make a mistake, I try to apologize soon thereafter. I could not, isn't this, it's so humbling for me to even say this, honestly. I was so angry at her for making me explode, but she's not really the only reason I exploded. I exploded because I exploded. But it was hours later that I came to her in a calm way, because I was calm, and I apologized and I said, Mommy's gonna try not to slam the door again. Mommy's gonna try not to scream in your face again. And it was very humbling, but it's a sign of strength, I think, because I was able to, speak it to her, even though in the beginning I was too busy blaming her for why it happened. It's the same thing in marriage or any healthy relationship. So let's talk about the 5 love languages of forgiveness. 1, expressing regret. Regret is the I'm sorry is just not enough. A person whose love language for forgiveness is regret or expressing regret, they want to really, it's an emotional language. It seeks to express the emotional pain that your words or your behavior caused me. So if my apology language is expressing regret, when you come apologize to me, what I really need to hear you say is, not just I'm sorry. I need you to say, I'm sorry. I know I came home late and we had plans to go out. I'm late and I know you don't like being late. I know I've upset you. It's totally my fault. I lost track of time in the office and I wasn't I wasn't I wasn't watching the clock. I'm sorry. So it wasn't just I'm sorry, it was I'm sorry and I realized the pain and the frustration that it's caused you. Expressing regret. Another one, number 2, is accepting. What do you think? Uh, responsibility, yeah. It's a person whose apology language is accepting responsibility. What's really important for them is to hear you take responsibility. I was wrong. Not making excuses, not talking about, well, my boss came in and I couldn't just walk out. I had to wait till he left the office. It's my late night. It's just accepting responsibility. I'm sorry. It was totally my fault. There's nothing else I can say except that it's my fault and I'm sorry. That's what that person needs to hear. Number 3 is making, No, that's going to be a different one. Making restitution. Restitution means to make things better. Making restitution. Or to make it right, to make it better. A person who has that apology language, and I want you to be thinking of this while we're talking, that's the kind of person when you go to apologize for them, the thing that they really need to hear is, do you still love me? You didn't come home on time. We had plans. Do you still love me? They want to hear, how can I make it better? I'm sorry, how can I make it better? I'll do anything for you. Oh my goodness, I forgot our wedding anniversary. How can I ever make that up to you? I will do anything. And then this is an important. If this is the apology language of your person that you're, courting or whatever, you need to know what their love language is, because for this one, how you make it better for one person is different than another. If you forgot the anniversary and you come up to me and say, "Honey, I'm so sorry. Let me give you a hug." Get away from me. Right? For someone else, that hug might be all they need. If physical touch is their primary love language, that hug, that embrace, sincere as it is, might melt everything else away. But maybe their love language is receiving gifts. So maybe that person says, you know what, I can't imagine how I'm ever going to make it up to you, but you know what, you know that rock on your finger? Give it to me. I'm going to get you one 2 times as big. I'm exaggerating. But for example,
A flower.
right, a flower. There you go. A Broadway show. But if making gifts is their love language, that's the way you're going to make it better. Another one might be acts of service. I don't know how I'm going to ever make it up to you, but I'll tell you right now, that garage you've been asking me to clean out, consider it done. It's done. And for that act of service might be enough for that person. Another person, it might be quality time and say, forgetting that day of our life is like forgetting eternity. I'm gonna take my 2-week vacation all together this year so you and I can have a second honeymoon. For that might be the only way to really win back or make it better. Am I giving you guys ideas? And the last one might be words of affirmation. Maybe that person, the hug's not going to do it, the acts of service, the gift, the quality time, but maybe what that person needs to hear is a love letter or some words just of how precious they are, how important they are, how expensive they are in your eyes. Write some scriptures from the Bible and just put it in a heart and, words of that. For some people, the words are more value than any amount of money. For some people, the words mean more than any act of service. Again, it's just different. Everyone is different, okay? The next one, number 4, genuinely expressing the desire to change your attitude is a good word. They have the word behavior, but I think either of those. Behavior is actually really important. So that's the kind of person, if your apology language is number 4, you could say I'm sorry till you're blue in the face. You can get them as many gifts as you want to get them. You can even explain how much you understand that they've been hurt and disrespected by how late you are. But if they don't see a change and hear a desire to change the behavior, it's empty words. I don't want to hear it. Show me that you're not going to blow your temper again, or else I don't want to hear it. Okay? For some people, it's all about I want you to not just change the behavior, but when you come to apologize, tell me, honey, how can you help me stop blowing up like this? I don't like myself when I blow up at you. How can I stop this? I don't want this to happen again. It's showing a desire to change the behavior. Okay? And the last one is requesting forgiveness. Some people, it's really important when you come to apologize to them that they hear you ask the words, will you forgive me? For some people, it's very important for you to ask those words because they want to participate in being able to offer the forgiveness upon your request. Sorry?
They are hurt.
And because they are hurt. But they want to also be able to sort of almost give you the permission, like, yes, you are forgiven.
It's not granted. Making all this doesn't make anything up granted. Giving me a present.
Exactly, you're right. No, you should, Miss Marie, sorry. Maurice is absolutely right. With all the things we spoke before that, for that person, maybe even after all that, they haven't actually forgiven you, but they want to actually have that closure. Will you forgive me? Yeah. Cancel it. Consider it done. Forgotten. Whatever it is. They want to have that closure. Yeah.
I think for forgiveness though, you know if they forgave you or not if it's ever brought up again.
Okay, we're done actually, so we can have just like 5 minutes maybe. Okay, so if you guys want to on Mariam's point or anything else, we can have a little bit of discussion now.
Like if you ever have a fight later on and that's like the point from like say 4 months earlier is brought up again and you never really forgave me, you know what I mean? Like it's still there because once you talk about it and you say you forgave it, then you should drop it. So for it to be brought up again, that means you never really forgave the person. I think.
Or maybe you forgave and didn't forget. Depends how you bring it back up,
But that's
right?
not really forgiveness.
We can forgive and not. Do you guys think we can forgive and not forget?
Yes, of
But
course
then
you
you
can.
don't have the right to bring it up again.
But don't bring it up. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have the right to bring it up again. Like you could remember it,
But don't hold it against them or bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Other thoughts or comments or questions? What do you guys think?
I think that's one that varies depending on the person, because I know like someone that I know really well, they'll completely forgive, but if they are in the moment of frustration about what's happened now, then even though they genuinely have forgiven you, it'll all just come out, and that's like you could easily think, well, then they didn't really forgive, but it's just the anger and heatedness of the moment that it's come out, and it's sad that happens, but it's knowing that to, I guess, understand that that person is just processing out frustration and being being able to forgive them for that.
Right,
Yes, too.
then do you forgive them if it does come up again? That's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah.
I had a question about the 3 positive ways to resolve the conflict. Number 3, you said meeting later. I just want to clarify that it doesn't mean like don't talk about it right now. It just means agree to disagree.
It
For
can mean
now.
either one. It can mean we could talk about it tomorrow. We could talk about it in a
Or I
month.
just don't mean like postpone it until it doesn't get solved.
Or it can mean let's just drop it, and if it comes up, we can talk about it at a later time. So it's really, it's almost like shelving it, yeah. Sometimes it's appropriate to meet later, like, and definitively, like, tonight, we can't talk about this anymore, tomorrow or next week. But sometimes it's like, let's just shelve it and agree that it's just gonna sit there, and if we ever need to revisit it, we will.
If I could just say something on that point, and there were a lot of times in our period of courtship that we had to kind of, we did either one or two. What were the first two? Forget, what were number one and two?
Meeting in the middle and
Meeting in
meeting
the
on
middle.
your side.
Okay, right. So there was a lot of that going on, okay? And then there was a little bit, there were a couple of instances where we actually said, we'll deal with this later, okay? But I think on that last point, we were comfortable enough agreeing to disagree. And there's still one of those things I'm not gonna bring up right now, that we still, on some level, disagree on, okay? But it wasn't a deal breaker. And I think that's the important point for number 3 is figuring out, is this a deal breaker, or can we just agree to disagree on this? And there will be certainly some things that you're comfortable agreeing to disagree on.
I think practically speaking, there are gonna be many things that we're gonna disagree on. I think the challenge is to accept the disagreement and respect the other one, your spouse who disagrees with you. Like yeah, and if I'm gonna say that both partners are gonna be the same, I really, I have been married for 32 years and I don't see that happening.
Well,
Like, and I think, you know, I'm serious.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about courtship though, in the period of courtship,
Yeah.
because 95% of the people here are unmarried. Yeah. But, sorry.
No, I mean, we have to accept the disagreement and respect the disagreement. I just want to build on what Abuna said.
But in the process of courtship, you don't have to accept it, you could walk away from it.
Well, if it's a break,
Yeah. Right, if it's a deal breaker, yeah.
or whatever, you're gonna, of course, you're gonna walk away.
Which is a great point, Victor, and then I wanted to actually mention something, yeah.
Very simple question. When is it, besides going with your spiritual advisor, when is a good time to say, okay, I'd like to enter the, when is it, do you say, I want to start courting you, after that first period of just getting to know a person? That's what?
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, I know. Nobody tell like one.
Go ahead.
Very simple.
You want me to
One
answer?
sentence.
When do you profess to the person that you are getting to know them with a purpose towards potentially marrying them? Is that the question? Like, when do you say I'm really interested in getting to know you in a serious way? Like, or however the question is?
Yeah.
I think when I mean I don't know that my answer is right or not. I'll tell you that there, if I can.
Go for it.
I'll tell you that Abuna and I were talking for.
No, but sorry, Mora, you're talking, that means courtship, right? He's
Yeah.
speaking about the step before courtship.
Before courtship?
He's like, when
What
can
do you
we
mean when
start
you're talking?
courting?
Alright, yeah.
No, I think well, let me tell you what I was going to tell you, and you tell me where it fits in, okay? We were talking casually with, like, reasons for talking, like, the underlying reason was, I was helping him, get some materials for his job, he was helping me get materials for the mission in Africa. I mean, those were, like, the surface things that had connected us. But truly, beyond those things, I could have sent him the package, he could have sent me what I needed, and it's done. You're just a task on my list. But we kept talking, and clearly, in my eyes, there seemed to be like, the guy seems like he must be interested in me, and I felt like I definitely could be interested in him. When he first, when he took the step to come visit this area to, quote, hang out with the people in the Northeast, and we spent a good amount of time, 2 days, hanging out with people. He even got to meet my family, all of this without anything being spoken. And then after that day and a half, and he was going to go back on his way, and he hadn't spoken anything, like more formal, like, I'm really glad we're getting to know each other, because that hadn't been spoken. I was actually very frustrated. And I was ready to cut it right there and say, if you don't clarify your intentions, I'm not going to waste my time. And he knows this, that's why I could say it like this. So through a sort of roundabout way, we had the conversation that night, which was, yes, I'm interested, yes, I want to get to know you, and here are the reasons I didn't say anything to you in the day and a half I was up there, because that was important. And then from there, we were moving forward after the first 2.5 months of just casually talking. And I think for a girl, I mean, again, this is just my experience, I'm not giving the right or wrong answer. We have to guard our hearts. When you spend that much time talking to someone, or spending time on, even just on the phone, or you can really get emotionally sucked in very, very quickly. And that's why I knew, like, if I had misread you, or you were not here for reasons that I thought you were here, then I can't go on, because I'm just going to end up being the one that gets hurt in the end. So I don't think it should be too long of a period of admiring someone before you make your intentions clear to them. I don't think the first time you should talk to them, because you might scare them away. And I've seen that happen with some guys who are just like it's like almost a formula, like, I want to know you, I want to be married, and it's like, don't scare her, but at the same time, it's like, don't wait too long, and you kind of have to gauge that through prayer, which is the point I wanted to say earlier. All of this, it sounds like a social topic, it's very, very spiritual. Everything we're talking about is very, very interwoven into the Word of God, because if we are not drenched in the Word of God, if we're not living, or at least trying to live in the image of Christ and do what is pleasing to Him, and if I'm not satisfied with Christ in my life, I will not be able to discern any of these things in any relationship, because I won't be able to discern the voice of God when things are happening or being said. So that's why people say, I don't like the word fall in love, but grow in love with Christ to the point that He fills all your needs, and the last thing you want is just someone to share Him with. That's the perfect formula, if there was one. So, and I think the time is up.
So did you get married